up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala, your thrice weekly podcast where we talk about the hottest news with sometimes the coolest guests and a touch of what, Terence?
Touch of some sea-level intrigue. No. I mean, it's a joke that we had behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's a joke we will give context to a bit more later.
Yeah.
But we have a very special someone here today. Someone who is not making his debut on the podcast because he's been here before in about, I think, 1 year and 3 months before.
And on some of the most popular episodes, right?
Yeah. I remember I have
popular.
friends coming up to me and telling me, hey, I got a big crush on Sudhir. I was like, really? Wow. Then it's an intellectual crush. I was like,
this guy or girl?
Go.
Okay.
Yeah, go. So I already said his name. So we'd like to welcome Sudhir Vadaketh,
Yes.
who is a author, critical thinker, political commentator, a whole host of other things, and now also a startup founder.
Yay!
Yeah.
Thanks for having me,
Founder
man.
of JOM,
Yeah.
JOM.
Yeah, I mean, we that was where the sea-level joke came from.
A C-level joke.
We didn't want to we were asking, should we introduce you as CEO or what? But he said no.
Yeah, so they said no.
Is there a specific reason why?
I mean, we don't have any C titles in our organization now,
Okay.
and I think it's also a bit problematic for a media company when you have a CEO and an editor-in-chief playing the same role. Right now, a lot of media companies do it when you start out because you're thin on staff and you're starting up and all that. But in reality, you're supposed to have a bit of a wall, right?
Yeah,
Between the
yeah.
business side of things and the editorial side of things. So I guess the three of us co-founders and our first employee, the four of us, we split some of these roles,
Got
some of
it.
these duties.
Yeah.
So I think the only sort of formal role that I have now is editor-in-chief.
Okay.
Yeah.
See.
Oh,
Oh,
I
that's
thought-
interesting. I thought it was just an ego
Yeah, I
thing.
thought he wanted to be humble. Everyone is this is a flat organization.
I mean, if I want to be humble, cannot call myself editor-in-chief also lah.
Just editor.
Or
just
chief
editor.
cock or something, yeah.
Take umbrage at the comment.
Yeah, so I mean, the last time we met you, we did talk about a potential piece that you're going to do in future about Oxley. It came out recently to coincide with the launch of this new brand, right? But maybe since last April till now, what has been going on in Sudhir's life, man?
Wow. Was it last April? Oh, yeah, it was
last April the
lah.
podcast came out, April 2021.
Oh, actually, so in May is when, if you recall, we had that like SPH kind of little blow up lah,
The umbrage lah.
The umbrage thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
General umbrage,
And
yeah.
then I kind of used that, very opportunistically to put out a call for collaborators. So it was around that time that I put out a call for collaborators.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think
Because there was, I think the way you phrased it was for journalists who want to do true journalism or something along those lines,
And
right?
you're sick of being yelled at
Oh,
by
yeah.
CEOs.
those of you who are not sellouts, just kidding. No, I said, I would love to work with any journalist inside or outside, of the mainstream media, open to all. And I think the idea for a media startup had been at the back of my mind. But that whole SPH umbrage thing just catalyzed it lah. So I was like, okay, it's in the news now. Let me just put out my call for collaborators right now.
Also, you were thinking about putting out a call already.
But not that early. Not that early. But when I saw that, I was like, might as well do it now lah.
Okay.
And so that May to August, September period was a lot of fun. Very tiring, but a lot of fun because I probably met either in person or over Zoom, probably like 70 to 90 people,
Wow.
somewhere around there.
Wow.
And it's a whole range lah, right? It's
Yeah.
it's people who I think might be potential co-founders with me. That's at one end of the spectrum. At the other end of the spectrum, it's people who might just be writers, contributors. They might pitch in 3-4 pieces a year or something.
Yeah.
So I just met a whole bunch of people, and I think it was very sort of energizing in the sense to meet so many Singaporeans who are interested in this larger mission lah. Yes, Singapore needs a good, independent journalistic platform, right? And what's there in the mainstream media wasn't really doing it for them. Even what's there in the alternative media wasn't really doing it for them. So I think it was just nice to meet a lot of like-minded people, lah, right?
Yeah,
Many of whom, two of whom are my co-founders today, Charmaine and Wei, and one of whom is our first employee, Jean. So the four of us are the ones who've been working most closely together, but also a whole bunch of other people who I'm still working with.
But when no, sorry, finish.
Go ahead.
When you put out that post, what was your expectation? Because okay, people, I mean, anyone who's interested in Singapore politics or just commentary about Singapore, they would have come across your work. So were you like, okay, and people know me lah, confirm people will slide into my DMs, or was it like, fuck?
No, I think I don't know if I had too many expectations lah. Obviously there were people who I think I was hoping would reply. People I knew also, right? And some of them did, and I'm working with them now. There were also people who were totally not on my radar who replied, and then I got to know them better, and I'm working with them now. So it was a bit of a mix. I don't know if I had too many expectations.
But was was there a go-to question that you asked all these 70, 90 people? Like one question that you asked to, sort of assess how suitable they are to work with you?
Or like a Elon Musk question. That one question interview, like, oh, wrong, question. Bye.
Yeah.
Leaving Zoom.
I mean, they have to be comfortable with my level of tokokness and alcoholism, lah. I think I don't know if I actually asked that as a question when we meet, but
so that means a Zoom call.
I'm gonna feel them.
You're holding a beer or something.
Yeah.
Show me what you're drinking.
I'm like topping up my gin on the side.
But it's
but it's
I was just saying that actually we've had you on this podcast before, but I feel like we're talking to a different version of Sudhir now, like going from like where you were back in last April to now, like, hustle life, startup, entrepreneur, all that.
Yeah.
It must change you. I mean, it definitely, re-energizes you and all these things. So, people think we're going to be talking about politics here all day, but actually there's a lot about the whole idea of starting up a new kind of business in Singapore that we have a lot of questions
business,
about.
Yeah.
So that, like, what were you looking for, basically, in that 70 to 90 people that you spoke to? And what kind of, like, were they interviews or just hanging out, or what was it? What was the whole process like?
So, I mean, from my point of view, they were all just hanging out, right? I mean, the one thing, I don't have a question, but the most important thing is, like, can I get along with this person?
Really?
That's the most important thing, right? Now, of course, in terms of journalistic capabilities, editorial capabilities, there has to be some kind of minimum standard, right?
Okay.
And so all of them, I read their work. They either sent me their work or I requested their work. So there has to be some kind of minimum standard, right? But once you get past the minimum standard, I think a lot of it is about how I think the team will get along together, cohesion, harmony, things like that, So a lot of our meetings were just me, not just me. It's not a one-way process, right? I think it's a two-way process. A lot of them were feeling me out as well, because to Harish's earlier point, I think people have these different perceptions or conceptions of me or who I am based on what they've read of mine or what they've seen and all that. This Yalla Butt podcast may not have been the best example. That's what I did with you. But, so people bring their own preconceived notions and baggage as well to the conversation with me so they're feeling me out too. I think, just getting a sense for whether we'll get along was the biggest thing. In terms of the core team.
Yeah.
Obviously, for the contributors, if you're filing 3-4 stories a year, I mean, we don't really have to be best friends outside, I mean, you know what I mean. But certainly for the team, I think we need a minimum level of getting along, right? So I think that's what I was feeling for, and so for the core team, I mean, it was multiple meetings, right? I mean, it's and all of them at some point included drinks,
It sounds like getting along with you was getting along with you is a priority for you when looking for these things. But what about if you couldn't get along with someone, but he's a fucking superstar, fantastic writer, everything? That means that you wouldn't work with someone like that, no?
I don't think so. Certainly not at this stage of the company's growth. And there were one or two people like that. There were one or two people like that. Who I thought that their assessment of their own abilities was extremely inflated, right? And I think the team that we have today and all our contributors, what I like about all of them is that there's a lot of hunger for growth and development. For me, that's very important. So I don't know whether that's what you meant by superstar, but that I met a couple of people like that I felt, wow, you think you're the shit already. You think you've made it, right?
Yeah.
And maybe in some ways you have, but for me, it's problematic to work with somebody at this stage of the company's growth. Maybe if I look out 3, 4, 5 years into the future and we somehow manage to grow very quickly, potentially. I mean, I don't think I would want to manage somebody like that because I don't think I can manage somebody like that. But if the organization was big and there was, there was some structure and others, and I felt there was a important reason to bring on somebody like that, either to expand our audience or to expand into a new product market or whatever. I'm not saying I'm totally averse to it, but certainly at this stage of growth, the ability to get along with people and have fun was important to me.
So had any of them ever tried starting something on their own, similar to what you wanted to start?
I think this is the biggest thing for all of us. I think they've all done things on their own. Different initiatives, artistic initiatives, community initiatives. They've started small businesses. So yeah, I think they've done very, very small. I mean, small business. Like Charmaine has her own sort of artistic practice and her own studio sort of practice that does a lot of photography and film work in particular. So I think they each have done their own thing. Jean is the youngest, so Jean is a fresh graduate. So
she's the employee.
Yeah, so Jean is our first employee, and she just graduated. So I don't think. I mean, she's done a bit of work for different organizations, but I don't think on her own she started something. But yeah, they've got bits of experience. Just like me in my old incarnation with my blog and my Sudhir TV videos and all that. I mean, I had my own sort of sole prop, right?
Yeah.
Which I used as a vehicle to get a bit of business and all that. But this is by far the biggest thing we're all doing.
So like very diverse group of people with different talents. What's the big vision of Jom that you sold to them?
I mean, in a nutshell, we're trying to build something that might resemble the New Yorker for Singapore. As lofty an ambition as that is, we know it's a gigantic task ahead of us to try to come anywhere near close.
Sorry, but when you say the New Yorker, for people who don't read,
sure.
the New Yorker, can you just give a primer on what that means?
So it's a good weekly magazine that does a lot of long form journalism, and the long form journalism often involves pieces that take months and months to research and write. Right, so it's very different from the new media world of a lot of sort of instant gratification, short clips or pieces or articles or whatever that you can bang out in an hour or 2 hours and whatever.
Yeah.
So this is like deep, thoughtful type journalism, which we feel is lacking in Singapore. Now, I guess there's a limit to the comparison because the New Yorker started out a long time ago and it still does a lot of long form journalism. I think we are a lot more platform and format agnostic, right? Okay. So I think, yes, we will have long form, but we want to go quite quickly into video and audio and other sorts of formats. So I think at the end of the day, if I'm, again, looking out a few years into the future, if we're still around, I actually see our mix of content as being a lot more diverse than what the New Yorker puts out today.
Which is digital and print?
The New Yorker?
Yeah.
Digital and print, but it's still very heavy focus on long form, long form writing.
I see. Okay.
Whereas I think for us, our mix will have more video and audio.
Okay.
Partly because of the era we're living in,
Yeah.
Right.
And TikTok dances.
I think for sure they've already asked me to do some TikTok dance.
Who has asked?
Slippery slope.
Jean has asked me to think about it. I mean, I'm pretty sure she's joking, but I'm like, you know what prompted it? I tell you what prompted it. One day they were like, "Hey, have you all seen Lawrence Wong's TikTok video?"
And they're like guitar and all, is it?
Yeah, I don't know, different ones. I've seen different ones. There was one with the budget as well. I think.
He did.
And then they're like, "Hey, Sud, I think you better. It's time, lah. You better." So,
yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I mean, sorry to answer your question, Terence. It's like a good independent weekly magazine.
Okay.
Right. That's different from what's out there today. You have alternative platforms like Mothership and Rise and New Narrative, independent, but none of them delivers like a regular weekly magazine. That's what we're, every Friday we want our readership to look forward to our magazine as a sort of a good opinionated takeaway of what happened in Singapore.
Yeah. To clarify, is it going to be a physical magazine as well? Or?
Digital only.
Digital.
But we're planning for an annual print issue.
Got it. Nice. Okay.
So once a year there'll be a print. Yeah.
So a magazine, meaning that there will be multiple articles per issue.
I think when we start, there'll just be one or two per week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because we're small and we're building and growing slowly.
And this could cover like any particular area of focus genre. Because New Yorker they do humor, they do pop culture, lifestyle kind of thing ish.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
For you guys, what's the focus?
So for us, what we've said is that as long as there's a Singapore connection, we're interested lah.
Okay. So there's a geographical focus.
Yeah. There's a geographical focus initially. So if some story from Bali or Bangkok, or we're not going to be covering it lah, right? There must be a Singapore connection to our stories, but it's across the board: arts, culture, politics, business, technology. I don't think we'll initially be doing things like fiction and poetry. Eventually we want to, but initially we won't. But in terms of subject matter and topic, it's really across the board.
I see.
Yeah.
And given that this is not like a hobby kind of thing, it is a business, it is a startup, right? What is the how are you going to make it sustainable?
Yeah, so
that's the question, right?
Because it is like, trust me, like I salute you and your team for doing this, because I fucking respect it. And the fact that I think even from the first time we met you, you did mention that this is in your plan. And I really respect the fact that you kept to it and we're seeing it now lah.
Yeah.
But I also want people to understand why maybe your business is structured a certain way and how you foresee that.
Is that the number one question you get from Singaporeans? Like, how's this sustainable?
How are you gonna make money?
How are you gonna make money?
I remember when no it is fun. When I some backstory first, but when I started writing initially, right, when I started planning my first book, which came out in 2012, Floating on a Malayan Breeze, which I cycled around Malaysia and wrote a book about it. I remember when I would have conversations. So the bike trip was in 2004. Then I went for many subsequent trips to Malaysia lah. But when I would have conversations about the trip and the journey and the book with my American friends, right? Because I was still in school at the time in America. It was always about the relevance of a bike journey to modern travel literature, or it was around something to do with the struggles of the trip and all that. Whenever I told somebody in Singapore about this idea of mine, right, they're like, "Hey, how are you going to make money,
So
selling books can make money,
So I just became an Indian uncle lah.
You've been an Indian uncle for a while, man, Harish.
I could see the eye roll from Sudhir like this.
I was like, we always say our podcast so interesting. We ask the toughest questions. Then there was like the first question.
No, because I know I kind of know what you have spoken about before, and I think it's very important people hear it.
Okay.
No, but it's important. So you see, I'm giving the backstory because that was like my 26, 27-year-old self lah. Always like, when I hear this from a Singaporean, I roll my eyes lah. But I think as I've grown older, I've come to appreciate it. Because in a sense that entrepreneurial spirit is very much part of what has made Singapore lah, and being Singaporean. And so I think you get to a point where you allow it not to affect you so much. So when somebody asks me how you're going to make money, I just take it in the best possible way lah, that at the end of the day, we need to be sustainable. We need to find a way.
Yeah.
I can't just be writing books for a living and nobody buying them, lah, right? So you have to pay attention to the market. We all live in a market economy. So I think I've grown to appreciate that question a bit more as I've grown older. And so coming back to Jom, I think our business model was structured, in a way that would allow our content to be what we want it to be. So what I mean by that, it's going to be a subscription-based model, right? So there'll be a paywall almost from day one, not quite day one, but very early on there'll be a paywall.
Yeah.
So most of our content will be behind a paywall. it's going to be monthly subscriptions. Probably the base tier will start at about $10 a month.
Okay.
And then we've got a couple of tiers above that for added benefits and privileges and things like that. And I think the question is whether Singaporeans are willing to pay for that kind of content, lah. I think that's the main market risk that all of us think about. Singaporeans, like people around the world, have gotten used to a lot of free content. Are they willing to pay for independent journalism? I don't know. We're trying it out. We're going to find out. But I think the business model is important because it allows you to produce a different kind of content. So when you've got an advertising-based model, right, which is what the likes of Mothership, Independent, Rice have, it sort of incentivizes your team to constantly chase eyeballs. And because you need eyeballs to attract the advertising dollars.
Right.
And that affects the way you choose topics. It affects the way you structure your headlines. You're going to have much more sensationalist headlines because those are the ones that get traction on social media. It affects a whole bunch of things, lah. So if we can get enough subscribers, fingers crossed, and our break-even point is 3,500 subscribers. Okay, so that will cover our operating expenses. So we'll be cash flow positive once we get about 3,500 subscribers. If we can do that, then I think, it basically sort of insulates your editorial team from all these short-term pressures. You don't need to chase engagement. You don't need to chase eyeballs.
Don't need to dance on TikTok.
Don't need to dance on TikTok. I might still dance on TikTok, but I don't have to.
That's how your interest is.
Is that your target in your office? Like your room, every day you wake up, the goal, no dancing on TikTok. Yeah. That's the motivation.
Oh my God.
No, actually, it's funny. You know that I did a bit of video a couple of years ago, right?
During election, yeah.
And like one of the things that I guess drove me to do it also, right, was a lot of my younger friends being like, no lah, you older writers, you all don't know video lah, you all don't know video.
So it's a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like, walao, you young punks, you think what, new format come out, you're damn good.
Dude, don't say dance, K-pop dancer.
Next one, Sudhir will be like,
But TikTok at the moment seems like a bit too far, too far for me.
No, but like TikTok, I mean, the dancers aside, there's actually a lot of good content on TikTok. I mean, of course, it sucks you in different directions.
Yeah.
But when it comes to startup, media, podcasting, there's a lot of stuff on TikTok. So the TikTok dancing is only just a thing we like to make fun of. But yeah, even we are trying to do more on TikTok because it is a beast in and of itself. But that's probably further down the line for you.
No, I've started to. I mean, obviously there are the book talkers and who promote books, and then I've had conversations with people about how the book talkers are affecting the book market and like changing the way people think about books. Not always positively, right?
Yeah.
Very weird. I think in America, I've seen some of the personal finance TikTokers who are very popular.
Stock pickers and all that, right?
Correct.
So no, I mean I've seen some serious stuff there too. I do think at some point we must find a way. I think 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, The Economist started its own TikTok account. The Economist magazine started its own TikTok. So I think it's something we will have to consider lah. Because I think ultimately, if you are a good content person, right, you must find a way to deliver it on whatever platform is out there, lah. You know, it's not a matter of saying that my story can only be told in 1,000 words on print. That same story, for sure, there's a way to tell it in a 15-second video or a 10-second. You just have to find a way, lah.
Yeah. And all the platforms have different audiences, different methods of engagement with the audience. So you kind of got to play to each platform's strengths. You can't like just, I produce one thing and then I'm just going to post it everywhere. It doesn't work like that. But yeah, I'm going to be a Chinese uncle and follow up on that question. That's how you make money. But then my question is, and this is related to everything we're talking about, why you focus on Singapore? Not only because of Singapore is small, the market is small, how to sustain, but also because I always thought of you as a very global traveler. Like, you wrote about you travel around Malaysia. You're almost like a travel writer, also, like the Pico Ayers and all that, And when you go to the US, I look forward to everything that you write about your trips and all that. So almost from day one, I thought, you surely won't just be focusing on Singapore. But why have you chosen to restrict it to the Singapore and sort of both financially and editorially it has challenges?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it has to do with focus and core audience. right? And sequencing of growth.
Okay.
So focus, core audience, and sequencing of growth. I think the mistake some companies, some media companies today make is trying to cover too broad a geography very early on. The example in Singapore that I use, and they're my friends, and I've told them this before, but I think New Narrative early on wanted to cover the whole of Southeast Asia. They devoted a lot of resources to covering the whole of Southeast Asia, including commissioning articles from different parts of the region, doing some local language content. They would translate pieces into Malay and all that. Now the issue with that, as honorable as it is and wonderful as it is to try to do something for the whole of the region, is that it's difficult to really capture your core audience in Singapore, right? So I think the way we are going about it is we actually just want to build a good magazine about Singapore for Singaporeans, right? And then with that focus, build that loyalty in Singapore with our core audience. And then maybe later down the road, then we'll start slowly expanding. Now expanding both in terms of the actual coverage of the stories. So eventually, fine, go and write a story in Chatuchak Market in Bangkok, or go to Bali and write something about the temples there. I think it would be interesting, and there will be an audience in Singapore for that. But also, I think at some point we might want to expand our footprint geographically. So I mean, the obvious places for me after Singapore are KL and Penang. For Jom to move to. But so the answer is I think the focus is very important. The focus is very important to build loyalty and stickiness with your core audience initially.
And I think you don't need all 3,500 subscribers to be Singaporeans, right?
No.
They can, because Singapore, you think about it, a lot of companies, MNCs and all that are all situated here. There are a lot of expats who live here. And maybe they move back, they're interested about things going on in Singapore.
Or maybe even Singaporeans based abroad. Because
exactly.
a lot of our listeners are Singaporeans based abroad, and they listen to keep in touch with Singapore. Yeah.
Totally. So if I use my blog data, right? My blog data has been one of the main metrics that we've relied on, right? In terms of formulating our own internal forecasts and projections and all that. But so because I've got 10 years worth of data now, and I would say 88% just based on IP address. Now I don't know if people are faking it, but just based on IP address, 88% of my readership for the blog is based in Singapore, and 12% is based overseas. Most of the places, and this gets to Harish's point, most of the places are places with big Singapore diasporas. Hong Kong, Bay Area in America,
New York, London,
the UK, Australia, and anecdotal. So that's the actual evidence. But anecdotally, just when I talk to people, I think the diaspora Singaporeans, right, are actually in a way extremely invested. They have a much higher willingness to pay. So when I think about our tiers and all that, right, I think some of our higher tiers, actually, the ones overseas would be willing to support us at the higher tiers, especially because they are very invested in what's going on in Singapore, even though they might be far away.
Do you have a GCB tier?
GCB tier?
Yeah. Like they buy a 400-year subscription.
That's called acquisition already.
I should.
Yeah, the GCB tier. But click here, you own our lives. Yeah, that's why you own us.
I'll work for you for free. Yeah, and you'll see me every morning at 8 o'clock with a cup of coffee.
It's a funny but interesting point that, like, how do we capture the segment that has a lot of money, right? So some outfits, and not just journalistic outfits, but other different kinds of platforms do, right? Different kinds of content creators do, is they'll leave like an open-ended donate button or something like that. You can give whatever you want.
Yeah. Or they just give this ultra high tier that's essentially the Louis Vuitton iPhone kind of, like the Hermes iPhone kind of level, where it's like, if you just want to give me money, this is the way to just...
But it's a fixed tier.
It's a fixed tier.
Okay.
But it's so much that it's like, it doesn't make sense at all.
And it becomes a flex almost.
Yeah, it's a flex.
Yeah, it becomes a flex. Like there was one, I always remember this story. There was one Apple app that cost $999. It was just on the store for 24 hours before it got taken down. But and it was called Red Ruby or something like that. So you buy it. The only flex is that it's on your phone. There's no use for it.
You open it and there's a ruby that is just a shining red ruby.
Something like that. It was on the App Store for 24 hours. It got taken down, but 1,000 people bought it.
Really?
Yeah.
No, but then how like usually when you buy those kinds of like conspicuous consumption type goods, right? You want other people to notice that you have it, right?
So I guess on the phone it was
On the
enough
phone, yeah.
for 1,000 people around the world. Just these 1,000 people, or maybe 100 people. Either way, the guy walked off with at least 100,000 or a
Yeah.
few 100,000
Yeah.
just for
Wow.
that 24 hours of flex. No.
Yeah. It's the
Wow,
equivalent
wow.
of the guy who bought 2 iWatches for his dog. And he just put them on his dog. And
Is
like,
it?
Yeah, in China, but yeah. It's like, why is the dog need an iWatch, you know? And
You mean an
it's
Apple Watch or
Apple Watch, Apple Watch. Yeah, lah.
Apple
Sorry,
Watch. Yeah.
Yeah, Apple Watch and nothing. It just flex. It's a flex.
It's the
yeah.
flex tier. Flex tier.
Okay.
Yeah. Flex
Thank you
tier.
for that. Let me think about it, man.
Yeah,
Because
it's very
to me,
convenient.
Yeah.
to me, a donate button, there's always something inherently when you ask someone to donate to your work, right? That feels like, oh, this is. Where's the line between like, I'm begging you to help me, and I'm asking for help. Of course, there's a nice way to ask for it also, lah. But because we've also analyzed this a lot about subscription models for media companies, and I've seen people just give a flex tier, lah. A flex tier where it allows you to just like flex and say, I mean, I'm the number one fucking fan of Jom. And that's why I'm doing this.
So we do have something like that, lah. I think we're going to call it our patron tier or something like that. But I don't know how I don't think it's like, as exorbitant as what those things you mentioned, lah.
Got it.
Now the other problem for any editorial outfit, right? With the open-ended donation, right, is you never want to be in the pocket of some big donor.
Right. Yes.
So the problem with allowing people to give you excessive amounts of money is that they might then expect some kind of editorial input or control or whatever. Now, of course, if you look at the really big media companies in the world, that's actually happening, right?
Yeah.
With the
What
Jeff
does
Bezos,
Jeff Bezos own, and what does Jack Ma own, and all this kind of thing. But it's something that you certainly want to resist, and I think for an outfit like ours, where editorial independence at an early stage is super important. We must resist it, lah. The nightmare scenario would be like a year from now, 18 months from now, people are like, oh, Jom, they're controlled by those two rich people. You know what I mean?
So you say
you totally lose your so
that's a nightmare scenario for you guys, lah.
Yeah. I never want us to be in the pocket of any like one or two big people. I don't think it's healthy. So ours is much more the Bernie Sanders model, right? Tons of small donors and who are our main constituent, right? Our readership, not that we are being funded by one or two people. I don't want that.
Was that a tough conversation that you had to have with whoever you're working with? I mean, specifically the co-founders, lah. That you're like, okay, even if money starts raining from the sky, we might have to say no to it, and you all have to live with that as well, lah.
Yeah, totally.
And they're all cool with it.
And in fact, we've been very careful in terms of our things like our shareholders agreement and things like that, right? How we've structured things to make sure that we prevent situations like that. So to give you an example, like next year, if somebody offered whatever X $million to buy a big stake in the company, right? And I thought it was a great idea, right? Charmaine and Wei can actually overrule me. So we structured things like that in the contract. If they thought that this is not a good investor for Jom to have, Sud's doing it just for the money, right? He wants to cash out very quickly and take the money. But this is not going to be in line with the values that we put in place. They can actually overrule me. So we've put in place a lot of these structures to make sure that we are not vulnerable to these excessive, capitalist endeavors that may actually detract us from our editorial mission.
Well, that's interesting because like usually, startup life is about hustle and then you scale like there's a hockey stick, and after that, like someone buys you for like 25 million, and then you're like, okay, I'm retired.
I guess even in the startup route, there are like two branches, lah. At a certain point, there's a fork. You either go down the VC path, where your goal is to become a unicorn, or you bootstrap and you can almost have more integrity as a business. And I mean integrity, not just, you go VC, you got no integrity. It's just that you have a bit more control over your business, and you can grow it the way you want to, lah.
Yeah.
Which I guess is the approach that you all are taking, lah.
Yeah.
In the sense that because but I mean, given that your background is in writing, content creation, to come up with those sort of structures amongst the founders is quite complicated, lah. So how did you how did you go on this path of becoming a startup founder? Like, what was that whole thing like? Did you like read a lot or talk to a lot of people? What was that learning curve?
Yeah, so I think I was fortunate in the sense that over the past 4 or 5 years, some of my freelance work has been in technology, right? So, for example, I started writing for this tech magazine called Inc. magazine, INC, and they sent me on a couple of gigs, but the most interesting one was when I flew to Jakarta to interview Nadim Makarim of Gojek. So this was in 2017.
Yep.
So as a journalist and writer, these are like your really fun gigs, lah. They send you there. I like spent 1 week trying out all the Gojek services. So this is 2017, 5 years ago now. I often joke with my friends. It's like, obviously I took the regular Gojek, but they had a whole suite of other services, lah.
Yeah.
So the joke is like, first time in my life I got a company to pay for my massage, because I tried out the Go massage also.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Part of research, lah, right?
Yeah.
So and then I wrote a story about Gojek and about Nadim. But to your point, that allowed me some exposure into the world of startups and technology, lah.
Oh, I see. Where there are a lot of discussions like this.
Yeah.
I see.
Just by osmosis, diffusion, whatever, I just picked up little bits here and there, right? Then I think in the last year and a half, I've been also quite fortunate. I mean, I've got a lot of friends who are investors. I've got quite a few friends who are founders. So just learning from them, lah. Just talking talk with them, asking them for tips, so on and so forth. Yeah. And yeah, that slowly, lah. It's slowly coming together.
Yeah, it's slowly coming. But like, did you have a lot of tough conversations with your co-founders?
With my co-founders
about this sort of stuff, or is it like you all decided and you figured this along the way, or at the start already you all knew that you all had to talk about this early on?
No, man, we've been figuring out a lot of shit along the way. I think some basic things in terms of our values, not just journalistic values, but our values as a human, our values as a person. Some things around what topics we may or may not want to talk about. Those sorts of big discussions we had early on. But in terms of the business itself, a lot of it has been making shit up along the way, lah. The other great resource I have, sorry, I forgot to mention, which again, I'm just very lucky and privileged to have these resources. But the other big one is I went to school in Berkeley, right? So a lot of my alumni buddies are working in tech in Silicon Valley. I just got on the phone with one of them 10 days ago, to talk to him about pricing, our different pricing tiers. So again, just very lucky, lah.
I see. Then plus your Burning Man,
plus my Burning Man friends who give me inspiration in many other ways. But yeah,
I want to say also we also had a big part to play in his ascension.
Of course.
In
the podcast.
No, just talking about the Build in Public movement.
Yeah, Build in Public. Yeah.
Yeah, where we basically said that if you're going to do this, why not bring the audience along with it, lah? Since what you're trying to do is build a community, build an audience. So there's a Build in Public movement, which is a coding thing, lah, right?
It's started in the tech world.
Where basically, people who are building these tech products, they were literally like providing updates every week of where the building was at, and so people can actually watch how the whole process evolves. And I thought for media company, that's fantastic also, right?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. After I met you guys the last time at the podcast, I think that's when we talked about it, right?
At Hans.
At Hans, was it at Hans?
Yeah, it was like a more casual thing.
We talked about it at Hans.
We actually are friends and we have met up for coffee. We have met up for coffee.
This is not a transactional thing.
I take back everything I just said.
Hang on, can I? Wait, hang on.
It was coffee.
Wait. Your audience needs to know this. When Harish and Terence met me at Hans, right? They basically have like office hours for like 7-8 people. So you have a designated slot. You better get there on time, because at the end of your slot, Harish and Terence are going to kick you out.
And it literally did happen. It happened.
No, the person came early.
The person came
early.
And then you met him. We facilitated a connection. And we're like, okay, Sudhir, fuck off. We got that.
It's true.
It was a casual meetup.
But what was interesting is that, so I think we were, I forget all the names, but is it Gimlet or something like that?
Gimlet. Yeah, that's right.
So I think after our conversation, I had this idea of like just leaving a microphone at all our team meetings. I don't know whether I talked to you guys. I think I might have talked to you guys about it.
Yeah,
we
we
talked
spoke.
about
And then, later
It's what Gimlet did.
just get all the footage and then figure out if you can make a
Yeah.
podcast out of it. lah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I thought about it very briefly. So there's four of us, right? Charmaine, Jean, Wei, and me. I thought about it, but then it was like we were just getting to know each other, and I felt the microphone there might change the dynamic a bit, lah. Because people become more self-conscious in front of the mic.
Yeah. For sure.
So, but I thought about it. Then I was like, okay, so how else can I do this build in public thing? And then so finally, what we decided to do, which I think you guys do with your newsletter as well, right?
For folklore,
Is to save some of the stories, which I started doing thanks to the conversation with you guys. I saved, documented some of the early stories and conversations in my notes, which I'm now reproducing in our Jom newsletter, lah. Which all of you who are listening you can sign up for it at jom.media, jom.media.
And I mean, I signed up for the newsletter and I've been enjoying reading it. Like your last one was where you talked about your number one question being, like, how are you different from Rise and New Narrative? So it really does bring people in. And your soft launch is going to be when?
We're hoping for it to be on Friday the 12th, but I don't know if it'll happen, lah.
Okay.
May not happen.
Yeah.
We're still testing a lot of things.
Yeah, what is limiting the why? How come you don't know when you're launching? Like,
we're trying to get the website to a place where we like it, lah.
oh, okay.
That's it.
Testing
That's
and all
it. Testing the website. So like the thing that we weren't too happy about yesterday was the actual customer journey for subscriptions. It seemed a bit odd, and we're running it on this platform called Ghost.
Okay.
Yes.
Which a lot of media companies use. And there's some, there's some basic like built-in default settings that some you can change, some you can't change, and working with the developers and
I thought
this
it
kind
was
of stuff, lah.
I thought you couldn't book out Zook or something like that. That's why.
Yeah.
It's like,
Actually,
not very sure. Yeah. This big launch.
Where should we have our launch party, man? I don't know.
Marquee lah, Marquee.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Not Suntec City, yeah.
No, but going back to what you said, one of the things I noticed in the newsletter, I think, was that you all are powered by Ghost. And I find Ghost a super interesting platform. And I mean, just if we could touch a little bit on why you chose Ghost, because from what I understand about Ghost, you have all these other website builders, but Ghost, they are very focused on like, it's a non-profit, everything is open source, and it almost feels like we are for the people kind of website builder. Is that true?
Oh, actually, I'm like no. It's I don't know. I would need one of our colleagues who we've got a part-timer who's his title is head of product revenue. He handles a lot of this kind of stuff, lah. I thought Ghost might be good because a couple of people who are media analysts recommended it to us, lah.
Yeah.
I'm not the one who's done a lot of research into the tech side of
She's
things.
the CEO, lah. You don't ask CEO this kind of
Delegate, lah. Delegate.
IT guy. I'm IT guy.
He's the IT guy asking the CEO the question. This is like you ask the Grab CEO, hey, why my delivery never come on time?
Hey, the website powers the fucking company, okay? No, but Ghost is there's a cool story.
I didn't know that.
You can ask your
Interesting.
The founder has a very kind of like, they've been remote first for damn long. Their whole thing is like, we don't believe in big tech companies.
Yeah.
We are creating it for the masses. We are very open with their revenue. The whole goal is not to become like a unicorn. It's just to provide a good service. And media companies like it because they are very good with, like, I think, keeping or maintaining your data and just very, very transparent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the Ghost story is quite interesting.
Okay, I'll go check it out.
Your friendly IT support info.
Thank you, Mr. Tilani.
Well, but so actually it's I think we were just talking about this before we came out, and it was like, basically you've been freelancing and writing for almost a decade already, right before this.
Yeah.
And then now you've jumped into this world of managing people and building a startup and everything. What's the big thing that you've learned that is different between the two worlds?
Okay, firstly, it was damn siong lah. When I started the team building exercise in the middle of last year, I had like been freelance for about 9 years, right? And I didn't realize it at the time, but being in that freelance space just puts you in a totally different headspace and mental, emotional type of mood, lah, right?
Can you elaborate?
Sure. Because I was doing a lot of work, right? but it's always at my own pace and time and target and everything. OT lah, right? You know, and like just to give you an example, every week, let's say Saturday or Sunday comes along, I would know exactly how my week is going to be planned and progress, right? Monday I'd have this interview. Tuesday I'm meeting that person. I'd write this bit on Wednesday morning. You know, there was like very little change to my schedule during the week. I planned it completely.
Yeah.
Then suddenly, you know, now jump into startup life, right? I'm like, wow, every day, like I'm getting 10 calls from different people. You know, some of my team members want to answer from me.
Yeah.
Sometimes talking to somebody from the bank, sometimes talking to a lawyer who's advising us on something, and it's just like it's just nonstop lah. So I worked in a proper sort of job for 7 years before that, and I think that was 2006 to 2013. So I think at that point in time, I was in the right headspace. But freelance life just completely changed that lah. You know, much more mellow, much more calm. I'm very happy I did it in many ways because it actually allowed me a lot more time to think about where the media industry is going.
Yeah.
If I had stayed in a regular job, I don't think I would have ever attempted to experiment with video, for example. I wouldn't have experimented a lot of other things. So I'm glad I had that space, but that transition to startup life was just crazy. I think I tell my friends I think it took me about 4 months. It took me about 4 months to get used to it. So actually January when we started work to April this year, right? I was seriously fucking all over the place, man. You know, I was missing appointments. I was forgetting things.
I think that's why when we met you that time was around then lah. And then I think you looked tired. You looked quite tired.
Oh, at Hans.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say
looked quite
Sudhir
tired.
came late. That's why we had to.
But you looked like wow, like really spent, you know.
Yeah.
But now you look like you're adjusted and fresh and everything.
Yeah. So it's funny. So by mid to late April, and actually there's a social media record of this, and I say social media record because by mid to late April, I told my buddies in the team, I was like, you know what? I think now my mind is there, man. I'm just rolling with it. I'm going to start posting more on social again. I had like ignored my social media because I couldn't take it, man. I was just like, I was just all over the place. So I think by mid to late April, I was like really in the flow lah, you know. And now I'm feeling that. Now it's like no problem. Like, you know, people randomly call me and ask me you know, it's totally fine.
But then you got the Bluetooth in your ear all the time.
I do.
Talk to me. Yeah. Talk to me.
I'm one of those cocks who goes walking in the park with the Bluetooth headset on, taking calls, man. I used to make fun of those people, man. I used to go to Pasir Ris Park and Lepak, and I'd be like, why is this cock like coming to the park in a Lepak place taking a call? And now I'm one of those people.
That's true. No, but walking and taking calls actually is still better than taking a call sitting at home lah.
Yeah.
Right, or sitting on a chair or something. So that means now what are your days like?
My days, so I work very early, right? So I tend to work from like 6-ish, 7-ish, but I end also very early. I'll end work some days at 4 or whatever. I do a lot of my own writing first in the morning, and then probably by about 9 or 10 or whatever, there's, you know, all the regular startup building stuff begins lah, right? Because everybody's on Slack, and messages are going back and forth, and we have to attend to things. So I think from 9-ish, 10-ish onwards, there's just a lot of team coordination, collaboration type stuff to do lah, which can be everything from regular editorial work. So we're working with contributors who submit pieces, we edit the pieces, to, you know, working on the website. The last week has been a lot of pricing conversations because now we're finalizing our pricing tiers.
I see.
Yeah.
So isn't that tough? Like, you're almost like jumping between two kinds of two operations of your brain. You know, one is the managerial, organizational kind of thing where it's the deadlines and structure. Whereas the other one is like creative. You kind of got to sit there and sort of like also just bang things out and all. So how do you
Totally
make that transition? Or is it like you're just basically swimming from one to another or what?
No, it's very difficult. It's very difficult for me to move from the managerial business side of things to the creative writing side of things. It takes me some time, and I don't think that's ever going to get easier. Which is why I think it's important to eventually separate the roles, lah. Right? You know, once the outfit is off the ground, hopefully some of that management admin stuff gets easier, lah. And I can focus more on the writing.
But are you someone who like you need to write every day? Like if you don't, your soul will kind of like.
Yeah, I think I am, and so the outlet, if I'm not working on a piece, I think the outlet that I use is my emails or my or my WhatsApps or whatever.
So all your emails to your teammates are like,
more flowery
"Dear
lah."
team, it is a bright, 39 years ago. I was blah, blah.
Sent at 5:31 a.m.
Yeah, correct. It's a long form email, right?
No,
Long form email.
I do actually. I mean, I don't. They might have a different view of this. You can ask them one day. But I think I do tend to mix up my emails with the more creative emails and the very dry emails because I need an outlet somewhere lah. It's partly for me to. I was like.
Yeah, so when your teammate gets a long email, that Sudhir needs to write like.
I think so. I think so, and they'll just like gloss over it very quickly.
but it's a real creative struggle. I mean, even for us, like our days are filled with meetings. You've done so much in inverted commas, but sometimes you just feel like you've not actually done what you are, what your real work is like, right? Which is to create, to think of new ideas and things like that.
And like right now when we have to write, because we are working on like a TV show now, I take like fucking 2 hours to get into the zone where shit actually flows.
Yeah.
And because like what you said, I think I wish I had more structure like every day, right? Maybe I should work towards that. But whenever I need to write, I'm like, okay, I have to get into it, and it takes a long time.
Yeah. It's not easy. And the last thing I just remembered is that in May I started work on my first serious piece for Jom. Okay, so basically January.
May last.
No, this past May. So January to May, like no serious like proper writing for Jom lah, just team building and work, And then May, which is going to be a profile of this Singaporean artist. Her name is Salty Shi Jie Ng. So Salty Ng. And so I met Salty in early May, I think, for the first time. We hung out a few times, and this is the kind of writing I love doing the most, writing about people, right? So I spent hours interviewing her, finding out about her life story and everything else. And I just felt when I finally wrote the piece, right, which probably late May or early June, I just felt so much satisfaction, so much joy. I hadn't been in that space for such a long time. It was just such a wonderful feeling, because that's my first love lah. Writing is my first love.
Correct.
So yeah.
No,
I think balancing that over the next few years will be important lah.
Because
for
you
me.
do still plan to write lah.
I do.
Okay.
I do for sure. I mean, it's
because I mean technically you could be editor-in-chief without writing lah. You could.
But then there's a lot of admin work at the editor-in-chief lah.
Yeah lah. As in you
overseeing people.
You oversee, but you don't write lah.
So I mean we've had internal conversations about that. I think one of the issues is that, I mean, firstly, of course, I love writing. So just my own self-fulfillment and joy, it's important. But I think there'll probably be quite a few people who subscribe to Jom who were my followers from my blog.
Yeah,
I see.
So I can't completely become a director lah behind the scenes. Some of these people we still wanting to see my work, right? But at the same time, I think one of my main duties at Jom is to also help. I don't know if train is the right word, but work with and cultivate some of the younger writers in Singapore, right? So that's also one of our long-term goals is to help expand and improve the writing talent pool in Singapore, right?
Got it.
And I think we want to be a home for young writers, for older writers, for whoever lah, who basically people who want to improve their writing. So I think that balancing that, like my own production of work, but also working with others to help in that bigger goal. That's one of the big tensions that we have also lah.
So no, I was just wondering whether it's because we talked about transition and all that. So you've kind of kept your freelance this past 9 years lah, with this big piece, this ebook that you have also recently published, right? I mean,
on the Great Lee family.
Yes, correct. I was going to say, I think maybe it's a good time to
that was exactly what I was going to bring up also.
Because I mean, I think it's almost like a demonstration of the potential that Jom will have, the impact that it can have on Singapore audiences and all that. For them to see someone actually take something that we assume that there was the end of the story or that, but actually to put in the time and the energy into the long form research and actually produce something that you can really read as an entire piece and really have a opinion at the start, and then after that have your opinion changed by the end of it, lah. I think it's a perfect way to transition between that freelance life and the startup that you're building now. But that was what I was going to say.
Was that always the okay? So maybe for those of you who are listening who have not yet signed up for JOM, first of all, go to the website, sign up. But if you did sign up, you would have received a notification that there was this post that was still on sudhirtv.com, right? It's the last blog.
Yeah.
The last
it was
post,
actually I wanted to keep it separate, lah.
You keep it separate.
I quite intentionally wanted to keep it separate from JOM.
From Keep it separate from
so that was
JOM.
my last piece.
Okay. But
I kind of used it as a vehicle to promote JOM, lah. I put a couple
JOM.
of ads inside and
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, correct. You're reading. Then, hey, JOM.
yeah, exactly.
But essentially, like, am I right to say that? I mean, because it covers a lot, but it kind of re-looks at the case from multiple angles and re-examines evidence that seem to have not been maybe analyzed to a great extent, lah. Right, and it tries to challenge what people perceive, And I mean, it is a deep dive like no one has deep dove into Oxley. But when
Doven?
what
I thought it was Doven.
is it Doven?
No, I'm just kidding.
Dive or dove? Dove lah. Fuck lah. Sudhir, I know you writer all.
He's trying
fucking
to
with you, Harish.
bring up the next generation of writers.
Just like here I'm Doven into Oxley. What was I saying? Oh no, okay.
Yes, deep dive into
deep dive into Oxley. But I mean, like, what was the thought process about making that your last piece as the launch pad for JOM? Or
was it even that? Was that even the original intention?
It wasn't. So it was lucky.
It wasn't.
It was fortuitous, lah. That it happened like that.
Yeah.
Because I started work on the Oxley thing in December 2020.
December
Yeah.
2020.
So before we even had him on
middle
the
of
podcast,
COVID.
Yeah.
People were thinking, oh, what do I do with my life? Sudhir was like, you know what? I'm gonna look at the Oxley case.
And you know why? It's because the Lee Swet Fen case had just concluded. So that was the case by the Law Society of Singapore against Lee Swet Fen. And they eventually found her, they found her guilty and of a lesser charge and gave her a 15-month suspension, lah.
Yeah.
But why that's important is that because of that case, you had this like tremendous sort of mountain of evidence, right?
Yeah.
That was basically released into the public sphere. When I say released into the public sphere, all court cases, the dockets and the documents become publicly accessible, right? Once the case is concluded. And so what you have to do is anybody, any of us, any Singapore citizen can walk into the Supreme Court in this case, because this went to the High Court, and make a request, lah. A member of the public can make a request, for these documents. And that case file is about 2,500 pages long.
Ooh.
It includes it includes hundreds of emails between the Lee family, Lee Kuan Yew to his kids, Lee Kuan Yew with Singapore sort of luminaries like newspaper editors, Lee Kuan Yew asking them, what do you think I should do with the house? Should I keep it? Should I demolish it? So there's all this amazing evidence, right? And you just imagine if this was like any other rich democracy, like mainstream media and media outlets. It's gold. It's a gold mine.
Yeah.
But Singapore being Singapore, and of course it's an ultra sensitive area because it's the Lee family. So it's not even just Singapore, but it's the topic itself is nobody wants to touch it, lah. So Terence, you're right. I mean, it kind of worked out that way, but I didn't think of it at that point in time because JOM wasn't even in my mind at that point in time. But it worked out that way that actually it's a very good example of what an independent media outlet can do, lah. An independent outlet that's not affected by commercial pressure or political pressure or whatever. So that's how the thing started. I mean, I can talk more about I'm hesitating because I can go on about Oxley for like an hour.
I was just going to add that everyone should read it. I think it's a fantastic piece of journalism, and I mean you've made it interesting, lah. But maybe there are definitely people who have come out of the woodwork to say, hey, why is he doing this, lah, right? And then I want, because I actually went online and just Googled a little bit, went on Reddit just to see what people are saying, And one of the things that people are asking is like, why is he pulling this up again? This is like how many 3-4 years ago already. It's a family affair. Why is he like dragging it out in the public and trying to make news out of it again? Is that, I mean, how do you answer people like that who ask about it? Because I understand your point about there being, the 2,500 pages of documents and international media might have done it, but when Donald Trump did the whole was Obama born in the US kind of thing, media outlets jumped in it also, like, and a lot of people are like, hey, why are we pursuing this thing down the rabbit hole? It's not a real story. It's not very interesting or what.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, what do you say to people who are critical of your intentions of doing this, lah?
So I mean, there are a couple of things, right? One is that this always plays on my mind, right? When you do a long investigative piece, so this is like almost 18 months in the making, right?
Yeah.
When you do a long investigative piece, there's always the worry that the media cycle has passed you by, right?
Yeah.
When I'm finally ready to put it out, it's like nobody's actually thinking about this issue.
Yeah.
So then, the other thing that you immediately think about, and I did think about this, I'm like, should I just hold this, lah? And there is a deadline coming when the media cycle will pick it up again. And the deadline which is coming is when Li Wei-ling, who is Lee Kuan Yew's daughter, when she passes on, which people think might be in the coming years because she's got a fairly serious neurodegenerative disease.
Okay.
So people think it might be in the coming years. When she passes on, Singapore or the government or whatever will have to make a decision on what to do with the house, right? Because in Lee Kuan Yew's will, Li Wei-ling can live there as long as she wants. And after she no longer lives there, then something might have to be done with the house. So actually, a part of me thought, hey, maybe I just hold this piece, lah. Because when Li Wei-ling passes on, that's when it's going to be in the news.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's like, no, when you're doing proper investigative journalism, you just have to put it out when it's done, lah. And different people, you can't have the mindset that this is the be all and end all of the story. It's more that I put it out now. Hopefully, other writers, other scholars, whatever, take bits and pieces from it. You're just adding to the general conversation, lah.
Yeah.
And so these thoughts do go through my mind, but what I would say to somebody like that, right, is that we need to constantly interrogate these issues, especially when they concern elites who have traditionally been guarded and protected by society, right? And it's important for our democracy, it's important for our society to actually know what goes on behind the scenes, because this is the use of taxpayers' money, which happened with the setting up of the Ministerial Commission, which happened with a lot of things. This gets to issues around how the Lee family operates. It gets to issues around how the PAP leadership operates. All these things ultimately affect our country, lah. It might affect it in a very abstract way. One comment I've seen from some people is that, there are all these bread and butter issues to think about. Why are you spending your time, writing about this highfalutin going on in the Lee family, lah?
Family feud.
But you see that ultimately the way power dynamics work at the very top, right? That affects everything else.
Correct,
it affects the way society runs. It affects the way our economy runs. The issues that happen at the very bottom. And so one of my responses would be, we need to do both, right?
Yeah.
We have to attend, of course, we have to attend to the immediate bread and butter issues that people face every day. But at the same time, we also have to interrogate the much more complex issues, lah. Because there's a connection between the two.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, the government has gotten involved in this private family affair, lah, right? They might end up ruling, gazetting the building on that. So the processes are worth being examined, because these are public processes.
Actually, we also made a video making fun of Oxley that we never released.
We never released because we thought we missed the media cycle. So we had filmed about probably 80% of all the footage we needed to make fun of it. Then we're like,
we do have the
too
video.
late. Then we're like,
really?
we scrapped it.
Yeah, it was kind of making fun of how obsessed people were with Oxley.
Yeah.
And that we were sick of it already.
Yeah, we were sick of it. Oh,
but we got so sick of it that we didn't even release the video. But that's why I'm like, okay, so people are are saying that, why drudge this up if when everyone's so sick of it? Sorry, you were saying?
But just now what you said in terms of deciding when to drop a piece of investigative journalism, right? Is that generally a mantra in journalism that if you have something done, put it out because it sets the stage for other journalists to build on? Is that or is that your own personal belief?
No, I think a lot of what's the right word? A lot of honest, ethical journalists would believe in that. Journalists who are more drawn to sensationalism or eyeballs or things like that may not necessarily agree with that.
I see.
But I think there certainly is a sense of communal spirit about, we're all constantly building off each other's work.
Yeah.
It's a never-ending process.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody might build on my Oxley work, and then a year from now, I might build on the other person's work. So there's certainly that sense in the writing community that's how it progresses. Now I know that the modern new media world, again, with a lot more sensationalism, a lot more eyeballs which are being drawn to individuals as opposed to institutions, whether they're on YouTube or whatever. Then it changes the dynamics a bit because people start to pay a bit more attention to the media cycle, right? But it's also the funding and finances and all that are changed. I don't necessarily blame the quote-unquote content creators.
Yeah.
I mean, they cari makan, right? You have to find a way to make this thing work. Whereas in the old days, and that's why the Oxley piece, for me, it was comfortable because I opened up my blog to donations in late 2020, around the same time I started work. And thankfully I managed to get enough money to fund the Oxley book If I didn't have that money to fund the Oxley book, also then who's going to fund it, right?
And you say book because it is about 70 pages.
It's about 70 pages. I mean, yeah, it's
70 pages.
I just decided to call it. Initially, it wasn't called a book; it was called a paper. And then after that, I was like, it's actually
book.
I just call it an ebook, Get Sunny to make a nice. I commissioned Sunny to make a nice cover, and yeah.
So just now, like in some way, is that the gap that Jom is trying to address? These topics that deserve attention but are almost too complex for people to want to dive into. For example, like you said, all the stuff is out there. And in some sense, I can imagine the apprehension of journalists to dive into this, but it's also to go through 2,500 pages and to kind of put it together. It takes a lot of effort, lah.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of gap that Jom wants to fill?
Okay, wait. So just on that point, I had quite a big team. I had quite a big team.
Yeah. It wasn't a solo effort.
I had a couple of legal researchers. But what's funny, and I'm sure when I say it, it'll be obvious, but 80% of them want to remain anonymous, lah. So their names are not in the book.
So I was going to come to that also.
It's like the Suicide Squad of journalism.
So then anyone who wrote this, everyone just points to Sudhir. Everyone just
exactly. And which is also why I wanted quite deliberately to separate it from Jom. Because I didn't want any potential issues that might arise from the book to affect Jom lah. I mean, Jom is its own outfit lah, right?
Yeah.
But there are 3 or 4 names in the book, and this all speaks to the political dynamics in Singapore lah. Those 3 or 4 names in the book, Ian Chong, who's a professor at NUS, is one of them. We had a conversation about it, and Ian said, actually it's important to show that it's okay. It's okay to be. So Ian was one of my readers, lah, right? So I always have like at least 5 to 7 readers for a lot of my work. People who just give me comments, lah. And Ian said, I think it's important to show that it's okay, lah. You're doing an honest, proper piece of research and work. Put your name there, lah.
Correct.
So so there were a bunch of people. And now I forget your other question.
I mean, the question was, okay, so if that is the type of content that you... Okay, so this one, like ultimately you said because of the nature you wanted to separate it from Jom. But I'm going to ask another uncle question. If you're going to be writing topics like this, right, then how, bro? This is Singapore. You want to talk about the lease.
But you're assuming that all the topics for Jom will be like this.
Yeah, okay. Or maybe something that deep dives into anything. And I always believe the moment you choose any topic, you dive deep enough, you'll uncover some stuff that maybe is people will go like, oh, it's maybe people are afraid to talk about. So that's my theory. But ultimately, whether it's Lee Kuan Yew or whether it's some other topic, how do you balance that? Or what's your thought process? Because I totally agree with the person you just said, saying that, it's important that people know that you can talk about this kind of stuff. That's one of the reasons why for our podcast also we make sure to never shy away from a topic, because we want to show people you can talk about it.
And you can have different opinions about it.
Yeah.
And they must be able to coexist in your mind without you feeling so scared to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. But as you are building a team around it and all, how are you navigating that? Or is that a fear? Or is it you think it's a fear that's so unfounded that it is your quest to prove people wrong? That there are topics that you shouldn't talk about in Singapore?
I mean, there's yes to all those things. The first thing I would say, yes, I think at JOM, we do want to engage in these sorts of pieces of long investigative journalism. So on the one hand, we do have a weekly product, weekly magazine. At the same time, we hope our reader-funded model allows us to also engage in these very long projects. Not just text again. We want to start making short documentaries at some point in time. And that's the kind of journalism that's not being done in Singapore today for a whole bunch of reasons. I don't blame the mainstream media and I don't blame the alternative media. They're just not set up to do this kind of journalism.
Correct.
And I think Singapore needs it. It's important, like both Terence and Harish say, to change the way people think about criticism, in society at large. It's okay to have alternative, different views and thrash it out without like anybody taking it too personally. That's how we're going to progress as a society. And in terms of the team, I think all of us have similar views on this kind of thing, that we do actually want to engage with these sorts of issues.
Yeah. But okay, so I mean, how would you characterize the response so far to everything?
And just one more thing on fear and things like that. I think if this was 5 or 7 years ago, I may not have touched this topic.
Okay.
I think it's also a function of where I am in my career. What I mean by that is that now I'm at the stage where I have access to a lot of good resources. And I mean particularly people.
People, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So I have a good group of lawyers who actually help me, advise me. I have access to some fairly senior members of the PAP and other parties too, but members of the PAP.
Yeah.
And a couple of them are the ones who actually encourage me to do this research, and because I think this whole issue has divided the party in many ways.
Interesting.
Also because there's a potential link to this is just a rumor, of course, but it's a potential link to Lee Hsien Loong's son, right? That's why this Oxley thing potentially allegedly. I mean, there's no conclusive evidence that Lee Hong Yi is ever going to enter politics, but it's a rumor, right? And so I think that because of the fact that I have access to these senior people who might advise me, gives me courage, right?
I see.
I wouldn't have been like that
Correct.
5-7 years ago, because I wasn't at the stage of my career to have access to these people.
Sure.
I wouldn't have tried to do something like that. I think it's a function of a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah.
Also, Singapore, where it is in its democratic evolution, people I think are becoming more receptive. Still a long way to go, but becoming more receptive to this kind of conversation.
Correct. So yeah, I mean, I was asking, how would you characterize the response so far?
Overall, it's been good from the people who've read it.
Okay.
There have been, I guess, half. Half have said that we really appreciate the moderation. You did a good job of balancing based on the evidence and everything.
Yeah.
The other half say, you were too, you appeared a bit too careful and scared in the way you wrote things, because there are certain points where I caveat a lot. I hedge a lot, my statements, and this actually is the product of conversations with lawyers and other people. Are you sure you want to say it this way? It's like potentially.
Correct.
So I think of the people I know who speak to me frankly, and they both liked it. Half said that we enjoyed the moderation. Other half said, you seem a bit scared.
You tell them you're right, lah. You're right. You're so daring. You're right. That's what
What's
I
your
always say.
name? What's your name?
What's your name? Put
out
your name out
there.
there.
Yeah.
Wow, I already published this. You still tell me not enough. Wow, Yeah. So actually, that's something I wanted to talk about because you spoke about access and you talk about this response, right? So but you've also openly talked about in the book itself that there is, you do know members of the like Lee Hsien Yang and his family, right?
Yep.
I think his son Lee Huan-Wu. I won't deny I've seen you hanging out with them in photos on Facebook and all that, as friends, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't that immediately make people like question, hey, your is it a biased opinion that you are putting on this 2,500 pages of documents?
Yeah. I think some people will. So I'm friends with Lee Hsien Yang, Lee Swetfen, and one of their sons, Lee Huan-Wu, as you said.
Yeah.
I got to know them over the past 5-6 years. And I think that's part of the dynamics of knowing them is quite clear to journalists in Singapore, which is that side of the family felt excluded from the mainstream media narrative, right? Once the Oxley case broke.
Yeah.
So that side of the family actually became friends and got to know a lot of people in the alternative media world. Right?
Yeah.
So it's not just me, but a whole bunch of people in the alternative media world now know Lee Hsien Yang and Lee Swetfen. So that's the roots of it. And when I first got to know them, I regard them the same way I do as any disenfranchised part of society, lah. If you tell me any part of society does not have an outlet to share its voice, to have a platform to give its side of its side of the story, I have the same sympathies for them, lah. Because we have these power structures at play. The mainstream media won't talk about certain people. In the old days, it used to be the opposition, right? If you go back 20-25 years in Singapore, Workers' Party, they'd hardly get any airtime in the mainstream media.
Yeah.
Now, in today's world, it's changed a lot. I think Workers' Party gets a decent amount of airtime in the media, but other parties don't.
Unless Leong Man Wai once in a while.
He forces himself into the party. They're like, guys, the party has ended. He's still there.
So there used to be a point in time, not too long ago, I would say maybe early 2000s, mid 2000s, when people who wanted to talk about inequality wouldn't really get a big platform.
Yeah.
Now in today's Singapore, it's changed. Now inequality and anybody can talk about it.
Yeah.
So these things, they change and evolve over time, and I, like I said, I have sympathies to whoever can't get access, who's blocked from the media. But yeah, we've maintained a cordial friendship over the years, and I put it out on Facebook. I put photographs of us on Facebook because I don't think there's anything to hide or be shy about. In fact, I think it's worse if you meet people and you hide it, lah. So in terms of the book, of course, there was always going to be the fear that people would say, oh, this guy is like a Lee Hsien Yang tool or whatever, lah, right? But I think a couple of things. First is that the book is purely funded by myself and the donations I got. Second, I don't include any interviews. So because of the fact that I only have access to one side of the family, I decided no interviews, lah.
I see.
Because I don't want to include only one side of the family, right?
Yeah.
So the source material, and anybody who reads the book will see that the source material is all these publicly available documents. And the final thing that gave me confidence, I didn't know about this or expect it, right? But is that in my final narrative, I think it shows that I levy some criticisms at Lee Swetfen and Lee Hsien Yang, and also I, at the end of the day, am fairly kind, I think, to Ho Ching. So if you look at the public criticism that Ho Ching has gotten about the house, for me, the evidence doesn't show that she did anything extremely wrong.
She wasn't scheming behind the scenes.
No. The evidence doesn't show that. Evidence doesn't show that. So when I finally, the researchers went through all these 2,000 plus pages and it finally came back, I was like, oh, actually Ho Ching comes out looking not too bad in this narrative, lah. Then I actually felt some relief.
Okay.
I felt some relief because then I was like, oh, okay, it's
don't need to fight the Temasek.
and it's not gonna because this whole issue is so polarized. You got the Hsien Yang, Swetfen on one side, you got Lee Hsien Loong, Ho Ching, the ministers on one side, but my evidence shows me that actually one, Ho Ching is actually comes out looking not too bad. So I was
Correct.
it's not that I planned it, but I was relieved that it happened that way lah.
Yeah. I mean, my thoughts about the whole issue lah, right? I mean, there's a lot of interesting detail that you go into it also. But even back then when we were like looking at the video ourselves, all that, I actually feel a sense of extreme sadness upon when every time I'm thinking about this issue, because it also, I think, like for a lot of people, family relations, can always be a very thorny point in any family lah, right?
Yep.
So, and this one, when it escalates to this level where it becomes like almost like a family, like a power struggle where the country is involved and all that, it's like, yeah, it shows you that's to the level that relationships between siblings can break down, and it's a very sad thing, like, was there anything that for you personally, having spent all this time researching all that you reflected on and learned about family dynamics and all that made you realize, okay, maybe this is something to learn about how you deal with family issues or how you talk to your siblings or your parents and all that lah?
So basically, was there a Fast and Furious moment?
What's the Fast and Furious?
Fast and Furious, they can chase car, but after all, it's always about family.
It's about family. Okay.
It's about family. It must be Vin Diesel.
Okay, lock that down.
Vin Diesel.
It sounds more like a mafia show, but yeah.
That joke, yeah. But yeah, because you spend so much time with it. I'm just wondering how personally if you felt any lessons you've learned about family and all that from it.
So I feel a lot of sadness for Lee Kuan Yew.
No, really?
I feel a lot of sadness for Lee Kuan Yew.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Now he's somebody, I mean, people have different views on him, but he is somebody I can both as a leader, he is somebody I can both admire but also have a lot of criticism for. Right? There are a lot of things he did that I don't agree with.
Yeah.
And I think over the subsequent years and all that, we will still have to deal with issues like that that happened under his watch, right? The Marxist conspiracy just being one of them. But I'm able to hold those two views on him, and what I feel really sad for him about is that the evidence shows that it's very clear that the last 4 years of his life, so 2011 to 2015, was just spent in this like kind of blur of misconceptions about what's actually going to happen. Spent in this blur of like realizing that his kids are slowly falling out of favor with each other and like turning on each other and scheming against each other.
And this was from the emails, is it, that you were reading?
Yeah. I mean, you can only get so much from the emails lah, but it's clear lah. From the emails you can tell what's going on behind. That these are probably the emotions that he's feeling, right? Yeah. I mean, actually, there are some emails that make it quite clear. That there'll be there's one email where it's Lee Hsien Yang and Lee Wei Ling, and Lee Wei Ling says to Lee Kuan Yew, this entire series of events, what to do with the Oxley House, A, B, C, D, E. We know it's all Ho Ching's doing. So, like this, and then there's a conversation there. But then at the same time, Lee Kuan Yew often expresses support for Ho Ching's judgment on the other hand, right? So he's obviously having to like deal with this like people like bad mouthing each other lah. It's very clear lah. And God knows what happens, whispers in his ear that we'll never know about lah. Right? We only email evidence is only like the very surface level of it, right? And it's clear for about 1 year of his life, I think it's about 1 year, he was under the mistaken impression that the house had already been gazetted. So so just think about a person who his entire life has been so on top of everything in Singapore, right?
Yeah.
And the last 4 years, like
his
blur,
own house,
super blur. You don't actually know what's going on.
And someone's telling you, oh, this is happening.
Yeah. And I think that part of it is just for me so sad lah. That part of it is so sad. Like your larger question, what does it tell me about family dynamics? I mean, the first thing would be like, if your family has a lot of money, make sure you all do your will properly. That would be the first thing lah.
This hashtag sponsored post for this law firm, bro.
It provides you automated will making in 30 seconds.
Yeah. I I don't know lah. It's tough.
Were
Just
you surprised when you had that feeling? Like, because I mean,
what
when
feeling?
Terrence, like when you realize
Sadness
the sadness for Lee Kuan Yew in particular, because when Terrence asked you that question, I was damn curious who you're gonna answer, and it wasn't what I expected.
Oh,
What were you
Yeah,
expecting?
I mean, I was expecting one of the siblings or something, but not Lee Kuan Yew himself, lah. So when you I'm guessing that's not a realization that you just had now, right? When it first dawned upon you, did you find it weird that, oh, I'm actually feeling sad for Lee Kuan Yew, or it was a gradual? You could see, oh, you can see where this is ending up.
no. I think it was very gradual. It's very
Very
gradual.
gradual, huh?
Yeah, very very gradual. Because yeah, you slowly just go over the things and the emails and all that, and you just slowly you slowly realize that oh my god, in the last 4 years.
Of this guy who brought up a
Because initially when it first came out, we know, oh, what we know is he signed 7 wills, and then the last will was in 2013. Da, 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 da. So, but you don't realize the backstory to it, right? Until you see how long that conversation was going on for.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, like, I feel, this is difficult to know for sure, but I feel like the lack of honesty from a lot of people all around him in terms of telling him what's going on. And I wouldn't exempt anybody from this statement, but it appears like everybody, right?
To some
all
extent,
all
yeah.
actors to some extent around him were presenting, their side of the story,
Yeah,
which maybe happens in these situations. But it's sad, lah. It's sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
damn.
But I mean,
For-
but how about between siblings wise lah? Are there any? Maybe asking cause of child rearing issues lah, right? Like how do you manage these like conflicts between siblings, and how do you make sure that they don't escalate further even beyond your the father's death or anything like that lah? Because it seems like the is irreparable already. The
Yeah.
damage that has been done between them. The family has been fractured into two
Yeah.
camps. Do you think there was anything that people can learn from these people?
Write your will. Write your will.
Besides write
Yeah,
your will, like, like human relation side of things or what?
I think like when you have multiple generations who are in power, right, it's always going to be difficult. So Succession, you watch Succession or any of these
I understand. Yeah.
dynastic shows, right? I think it's almost like built into the blueprint lah. Once you have successive generations in power, it's like that to me lah. It's like it's almost inevitable, and it could apply to politics, it could apply to family businesses,
yeah.
It could apply to anything, and I think that's just the nature of it, man. So I mean, in the case of this family, one thing that many people say is that, oh, maybe Lee Hsien Yang might have made the better politician because he seems to some people to be more sociable, more affable, all that kind of thing. So one of the weird theories I heard, which I put in the book, is that the original sin is actually committed by Mrs. Lee Kuan Yew. So I'm going to pronounce her name wrongly, but I think it's Kwa Jok Chu or something like that.
True, yeah.
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 And why is the original sin with her? Because apparently she is the one who pushed Hsien Loong to be prime minister over Hsien Yang, because Hsien Loong is the oldest son. Oldest. So the oldest must fill the shoes lah.
Yeah.
Whereas Hsien Yang, who would be the more natural choice, she held him back. So again, this is a theory, a rumor, whatever put to me. And in the book, I put it in this section called "The Women Are to Blame," because there's a strong misogynistic strand, I feel, throughout this saga, where people are willing to blame all the women.
Yeah.
It's Ho Ching's fault because she's the one manipulating Lee Hsien Loong. It's Lee Swetfen's fault. She's the one manipulating Lee Hsien Yang. Li Wei Ling can't be trusted because she's got all these mental health issues.
True,
It's
actually very true.
And the craziest misogynistic element of it was to do with this Mrs. Lee Kuan Yew lah. Because it's like she's not even around, and and it's just such a weird theory lah. But I think it's always going to be tough when you have successive generations. I don't really know how to get about that sibling rivalry, almost to be expected lah.
Yeah.
I
And have you got I'm not sure if you can talk about it, but have you got any kind of response from that side of the family, Lee Hsien Yang side of the family, about the article and all that?
Lee Hsien Yang sent me a message about something he disagreed with. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
okay.
really?
Just a clarification.
A point that he disagreed with.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Having to do, specifically having to do with events of 16 December 2013, which is the famous fateful night lah. So the final will was signed on 17th December. I hope I'm getting my dates correct. 2013, and that 16 December night there was like a flurry of activity lah in the Lee Kuan Yew house. You know, they were all like, "Hey, Papa wants to resign his will." Li Wei-ling messaging them.
Yeah.
You know, Lee Hsien Yang messaging Lee Swetford, and so anyway.
So actually it's quite interesting because like there's a lot of detail happening and all that and obviously you said you had a team behind you. So what was it? Can you just give people an understanding of how you were working with that team? Was it like you took 2,500 pages, split it up, then everyone has to report to you every week about something that they read or interesting points, or what was it? Or everyone just read everything and you all sort of just got together and talked about it, or what?
It was initially one person who sent me what this person thought is important.
Okay.
I'm trying to be very careful. Not even revealing gender. I'm not I'm very careful. So they sent me their thoughts on what they thought is important, and then I didn't have a very formal structure in place. Because I didn't know what the end product would be.
Yeah.
Initially, I was like, oh, let me just make another 5-minute video lah. You know, actually my initial thought, I was like, let's go through this thing and I'll just make a quick 5 minute. Then I realized that, oh shit, there's actually a lot of detail, and I don't think a snappy video is gonna be fair lah. You know, because not and this gets back to our earlier point about I think as quote unquote content creators, I hate that expression, but I until a better one comes along, I'm going to keep using it. But as content creators, I think we must have the ability to produce on any platform. I think that's important.
Right,
But I think for my first piece, I wanted to make sure it's super bulletproof lah. That's why if you look through the 70-page book, right? Whoever actually looks through it, it's extensively footnoted. There's so many references and everything. Because I knew if I don't do that, I might kena from somebody basically. So I did it. So because I didn't know what the end product would be, we didn't have much of a structure. The first person, they sent me what they thought was interesting. Then I went back into it. After that, there were 2 or 3 more people who also went into the source material. I certainly didn't look through all 2,500. I didn't. I jumped around.
I see.
The like for me, the things that I spent a lot of time looking at very closely were the affidavits. So when the Ministerial Commission was set up, or committee was set up, they asked for affidavits from the siblings, and
I see.
That and some of the emails some of the emails I looked at very closely, but certainly not the whole thing. There's just too much.
Yeah, but was there like the one big aha moment? You're like, oh, now I know this. That's the thread to talk about lah. Like, was there one moment do you remember in the whole process?
I think for particular stories and quote unquote arguments, there were I had several aha moments. Okay, so one of the aha moments, and there's a section in my appendix which is called "Why the Formation and Findings of the Ministerial Committee Are Problematic." Right? And one of the aha moments was that in 2015, in public, Lee Hsien Loong had said that only when Li Wei-ling is no longer living in the house, it will be up to the government of the day to consider the matter. Lee Hsien Loong said it in public in 2015. Now in 2016, Li Wei-ling is still living in the house, and the Ministerial Committee is set up, and the exact words they use is, "We're set up to consider the options." So on the one hand, in 2015, they said only when she's no longer living there, then the government is able to consider. But then in 2016, the committee said to consider the options. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, hang on, this is clearly something that's problematic, lah.
Yeah, I see.
I see.
So there were several aha moments like that.
So that was you started December 2020 and it ended when the research?
It ended so I mean it really it really got supercharged in February this year lah.
February this year.
When because before that we didn't have access to everything, right? We had access to little bits here and there.
Yeah.
But from February this year, I went to the Supreme Court and made an application to get the entire docket. So it was February this year. So from February this year, the research really was supercharged lah.
So to bring it back to Jom a bit, February this year, Jom was already in the works.
Yeah.
Right.
Jom was very much in the works.
So when did those two things kind of start converging that you're like, okay, you're gonna release this at like to mark the transition to Jom? Like when did you decide that?
It just maybe sometime in April or May.
In April or May?
Yeah, April or May. When I realized that the timing would work out quite nicely.
I see.
Yeah.
So like just now Terence asked about the when it and during the research did you find that aha moment, that thread? When you put out your call for collaborators last year for Jom, right? When was the moment you're like, okay, shit is getting real. It's happening. No turning back.
No, Jom or you talking about
Jom.
Oh, okay,
Jom, yeah. Because Jom started off as an idea, you put a call out.
Yeah.
But
so,
when was the turning point?
I think for me the big one was when I found two co-founders I like lah, and I thought we all get along. They might have a different view on that, but you can ask them one day.
We're having them on the podcast next. They didn't tell you.
Bring them in.
But yeah, I remember, and I probably remember for a long time when Charmaine, I kind of had to strong arm both of them, right? They both have told me that when they first responded, they were just responding as contributors.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
See.
It was one of these that mission creep or whatever you want to call it. I slowly hey, no la, I need a co-founder lah, and I think it maybe is still sinking in to them the extent of the extra work that than what they originally thought they were signing up for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think because I think I might have talked about this in your last show, but I don't know. But one of the big decisions was whether to just keep doing my own thing, which I didn't want to do lah. Just build a brand and platform of Sudhir TV, which I never wanted to do lah. And I'm happy now to slowly start distancing myself from that individual brand. But so it was very important for me to get the two co-founders on board, and so I remember very clearly the moment when both of them said, "Yeah, okay, fine. You've cajoled us enough. We'll do it. We'll do it with you."
And you had to be completely transparent about this big project that you were doing at the same time, lah.
The Oxley one. Actually, the Oxley one, no, not really.
Oh,
because again, at that point, September, October last year, I didn't really quite know what. I didn't really, something interesting, but I didn't really quite know what it was.
I see.
But I had to be very direct with them once it was getting closer to publication, lah.
Yeah.
Because then we have to have serious conversations, right? We're like, okay, this is separate. This is your own thing. It's nothing to do with Jom, right? Okay, but then is it okay if we use it to promote Jom a little bit? We had all these conversations, lah.
Yeah. And why the name Jom?
Jom. So, I mean, I've always loved the word Jom. Jom is Malay for let's go. Jom makan, let's eat. Jom minum, let's drink. So I've always loved the word Jom. It's more popular in Malaysia than it is in Singapore. So your Malaysian friends probably use it a lot more. But I think at the end of the day, we had 3 Malay names on the shortlist. Jom, Halia, and Salat. So Halia means ginger. Ginger is native to Southeast Asia, and it's actually from here that it's spread around the world. So we thought it's quite symbolic. But of course, Halia, the problem.
Restaurant,
everybody. Hey, no lah.
Sudhir, you're working at Halia.
I know, Botanic Gardens.
Damn it, I got married there. Why you name your restaurant?
Hey, Sudhir, I got married at your company.
So then the other one, Salat. Salat was a late entry, which I quite like. Salat means straits. Like Malacca Straits. And it's actually an old name for Singapore. very
is
old name
it?
for Singapore, used by some of the seafarers and
Salat.
Okay.
but in the end we chose Jom. We like the energy of the word Jom. You know, it's
Yeah.
a nice word to say.
Very
nice.
startup feel to it.
Yeah,
Also, right?
and we also like the fact that it kind of speaks to this like sense of collaboration and doing something together.
Let's go.
Yeah. So it's sort of consensual, like shared passion, shared purpose. We're doing it together, lah. Whatever makan or whatever, we're doing it together. So we like that aspect of it. There was a few like issues around like, oh, should we, is it right to have a Malay name for an English language publication?
But it sounds like, I mean, even if you don't speak Malay, it just sounds like a cool word, to just
Jom.
I think so.
easy to spell, easy to remember.
Yeah. So yeah, we decided on Jom, I think in March sometime.
I see. But do you have plans in future like Jom videos or like playing on the word Jom for different things or?
Yeah, we do. We want our food section to be Jom Makan, for example.
Oh,
I haven't thought further than I haven't thought about formats like video but yeah, we want to use it in different ways.
So
sure.
that means if I would ask you like, let's say 3 years or 5 years down the road, right? If all things go great, what would Jom be doing then?
If things go amazingly well, things go amazingly well.
Yeah.
A lot of subscribers. I think 3 to 5 years, for sure we would have a full on audio podcast and video unit for sure. Okay, so that's in terms of format, that's for sure. Our team, full timers now, we have 3.5. I think 3 to 5 years we'd probably be coming close to 10 people. I think full time team, right? Different positions. We'd probably have a one or two full time business people as well. And then in terms of geographically, I think if we did really well, 3 to 5 years, I hope we are in maybe at least 2 or 3 cities around Southeast Asia. So we have little Jom outfits already that have been seeded. So I think KL and Penang are the obvious next places, but maybe Jakarta also. But that's like the whatever they call it.
We'll have a podcast in 5 years, then we can see the how it compares. Yeah,
that's like the super optimistic lah. Yeah, if everything goes amazingly.
Yeah. Wow, so right now, if people want to find out more about Jom, like where should they go?
Just go to jom.media, JOM.media.
Jom, and any social media or anything like a.
We have our social media channels.
Coming soon.
I forget what they are. As in, like, I forget the
handle.
I think our IG handle is jom.media, but I'm not 100% sure.
But Jom.media is where people sign up.
They sign up for the newsletter.
The website will be launched in the coming weeks.
But it'll be the same URL.
Okay.
So at the moment, the URL directs to the newsletter. Once the site is up, the URL will direct to the site itself.
I see.
And then the Oxley ebook is on your blog.
Oxley ebook is on my blog, which is sudhirtv.com, SUDHIRTV.com.
The website from the 1980s.
YouTube TV.
Yeah. Justin TV, Sudhir TV.
I thought I was being so smart, man.
Yeah, for those listening who maybe did not hear the previous podcast, we were giving Sudhir so much shit. Even though it is its initials, I thought it was just trying to play on the trend that was very common in the early 2000s. Justin TV, Sudhir TV.
Yeah.
But
Jom is I think his
well done.
Your naming expertise has improved a lot.
Thank your co-founders. Thank your co-founders.
Nothing to do with me, bro. I'm serious.
Otherwise, it would be like, guys.
Nothing to do with me. Yeah, it would have been like Halia TV or something.
Correct. Halia TV. Yeah, man. But cool. I didn't give you the brief earlier about the one Shiok thing. I don't know whether you remember that Yalabat practice where at the end of every podcast we do a little segment called One Shiok Thing, which is where we just share with our listeners one thing that we have come across in the past few days that they can experience themselves. An article, a video,
a book,
a song,
a video,
or anything.
YouTube
So
video.
you won't need to go first. We will go first.
Yep.
And then after that, we'll come to you.
Yeah.
So Terrence, would you like to kick things off?
Sure. I'm reading this book right now. I mean, since I became a dad, I've started reading a lot of books about parenting, because it's especially for men, I find it's very there's very limited resources before the baby comes. After the baby comes, there are resources, but a lot of times it's about just general parenting. But they don't talk about what it means to be a man or what it means to bring up a son, in today's society. So I started to really research into it. Is there like I wanted to talk to my son one day about religion and all these things, but then I came across this podcast on, I think, The Art of Manliness, where they interviewed this guy who wrote the book, The Intentional Father. So it's actually, I can't remember his name, but I remember his background and all. He's actually a pastor who basically looked at data about men in the world today, in the world that we live in today, right? And I'm not religious at all, and if you tell me, oh, this is a pastor's book, I would probably not read it at all. But he actually started looking at research, and he realized that I think he had some crazy statistic, like only 1 in 5. He went to a prison and then looked at all the male prison inmates. Only 1 in 5 of them had the presence of a father in the childhood, in the upbringing. So that statistic really shocked him into realizing that how important it is to have a father figure as you're growing up. And he said that the society that we live in today doesn't prepare fathers for that kind of role, to be not only just present, but also actually be intentional have intentions in terms of bringing up a child. Like, what do you want to bring up a child to become? What do you bring up your son to be? So he's written a book where he's looked at all the different practices across a lot of cultures and different religions, like Mormonism, cults. I don't know, not cults, but other forms of smaller religions and things like that, And he's taken a lot of that data, and then he's come up with a intentional plan that he said all fathers can actually use, to journey your child from your son from boyhood to adulthood between the ages of 13 to 18. Involving like every year, there's like one challenge that you give your son,
and it's based on different cultures,
based on stuff he's read across different cultures, and that's why I even respect him, because I went to read out Amazon reviews. I was thinking, oh shit, pastor wrote this, I don't want to read it. Then some of them are 1-star saying, oh, this is bullshit. I was expecting something, he's a man of God, and how dare he bring in this pagan beliefs and everything into his book. Now I was like, oh yeah, now I'm going to read the book because he's like that. And so, yeah, he talks about the rituals that boys used to have to do when growing up. Like 13 years old, you have to climb fight to climb some pole so that you all can grab something. And then you are considered, a part of the tribe. Then at 18 years old, they send you out to go and, hunt for food and all this kind of thing. And then you come back, and then that's when you're a man, He said that now, especially in America, they have no such kind of traditions or cultures. And we're not talking about religious ones, where you get, like a bar mitzvah or something like that. But it's really just the idea of like how Mormons do it, you reach you're trained all the way until a certain age, then you go for 2 years on a not sabbatical. You go to another country,
missionary, like a mission.
Not even a missionary, but they go out there and you be spread the word about your religion and all that, to people who don't necessarily want to hear it, right? But he says that is just such a formative experience that really gives these guys a leg up in terms of just adjusting to what it means to be an independent man of the world,
Singapore got NS already.
So in some sense, it has made me think of that, like, oh yeah, we do have NS and all that. But at the same time, NS, they don't talk to you about how you treat a woman. Like, for example, okay, if you're a straight heterosexual person, how do you respect the woman that you're dating, versus just someone that you're just talking to, or even just how you respect people when you talk to them, lessons like that. I mean, I growing up, I think mine's more traditional Asian kind of household. The dad provides for the house, everything, but a lot of the more softer skills that you need to succeed in life today, those aren't really talk to you about. And I never thought of like NS as a, this ritual that everyone goes through, and then you really learn, become a man. Because in some sense in NS, you're given more instructions on what to do as opposed to having to think for yourself also, right? So yeah, I'm only about halfway through the book, but I've already just found it. It's quite interesting just looking at how different cultures think about the concept of manhood, and how kids go from boy to adult.
And so this one has some of the softer skills and all that, some of the rites of passage in this one.
Yeah. So for example, one of the things he did for his own son, a thing where he finds other dads who also have the same belief, and then I think at a certain day of the year, they go to the beach in New York State. They meet at a beach and then they sit down around the campfire and then they trade stories about being growing up and being at their age and all that. Then after that, they say, okay, the 3 sons together, three different families, 3 sons. Say, okay, now you guys have completed this challenge of just a brotherhood and everything. Let's just run into the water together. Then they all strip and just run into the water, and that's just part of this is ritual lah. Sounds completely stupid, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, okay. At least it feels like there's something that you are trying to teach your son, and there are certain points where your son has no choice but to sit down and also just listen to you tell him stories about how to be a better person and all that lah. And then I just thought,
is it a thick book? Is it
it was a very small book, and then I just thought, okay, he makes a point in there in the first chapter that I could empathize with is that he said a lot of no father ever goes to very few fathers actually go into fatherhood confident of their abilities, but a lot. I mean, there are people who are very determined to be good fathers lah. And if you're reading the book, that's why you're one of them lah, and then so that's what it means to want to be an intentional parent lah. You want to find out, how do I bring up someone to be a good person in the world lah. And I think that's not discussed enough. A lot of times it's just about how to make how to make sure your son, you make enough money so your son can go to a good college or good get a good education. And not be an asshole. Don't do anything stupid.
Hey Harish, you should read this book before you have your son lah.
You too lah. 1 finger pointing at me, 4 fingers pointing at you. But the themes kind of coincide. Just now you were talking about the Lee Kuan Yew and his kids, and Terrence and this.
But it does coincide. It makes you think about the previous generations, the baby boomers, the ethos of. Once I provide for my family, that's it really.
That's your role fulfilled.
That's my role. Like whether do I need to really teach you and sit down with you and tell you how to be a man, that kind of thing. But in the world today, is that enough lah, right?
Wow. Yeah. My one stroke thing is a lot less philosophical.
Which TikTok dance is?
No, it's this article I came across recently on the Smithsonian where a bunch of researchers have started experimenting with using dead spiders as micro claws. Like those claw machines.
That,
normally you see metal claws and all, right?
Yeah.
So they're experimenting with using dead spiders connected to like a hydraulic pump to make the legs open up and close.
It sounds shock, man.
Yeah. And it's this whole field of research in called necrobiotics. So like dead animal robots, like dead animals being used for robots. And it's fucking interesting because they use wool spiders because I believe they don't web. They are one of the few spiders that don't have webbing. They have very strong legs. And a spider, right, the way it moves, it's actually, they have no muscles now. It's just, each leg is like a hydraulic chamber. So using the bodily fluids, they move. That's why when a spider dies and falls back, you see its legs curl up. So all they do is they insert like an injection into the spider and they increase the water pressure, decrease the water pressure, and it closes and opens. So they are researching into like these micro clamps using millions of spiders to just pick up shit lah. And it fucking blew my mind. It's part creepy, part holy shit, this is cool. And yeah, that is my one stroke thing.
I've seen the videos.
Wow.
You've seen the videos.
It picks up much heavier things than what the small spider you imagine can pick
and
up. Right?
It would pick up more than a steel clamp would because the spider's legs have all the micro hairs for grip. So they make use of that to come up with super efficient clamps that are biodegradable.
Nice.
Yeah. So you have had philosophy on bringing up kids, necrobiotics. Over to you, Sudhir.
Okay, mine is about basketball, Russia, and hashish.
Oh,
wow.
I don't know if you all heard this story.
That's like a Jom article.
How many years of research was that?
No, but this story, and it just came out today, but it's interesting because it's got a lot of like different rabbit holes you can run down if you read into it. But this American women's basketball player, Brittany Greer, right?
Yeah.
She just got sentenced to 9 years in a penal colony in Russia.
Yeah.
And she was initially caught with bringing in these hashish sticks or vapes or whatever into Russia in February or January this year. And she's basically been caught up in the whole Russia-Ukraine war-related diplomacy, lah, right? She's basically, people regard her as a hostage, lah, right? You know, Russia has arrested her on these supposedly trumped-up charges. Nobody knows what exactly she had. And she's been in custody since the war broke out, essentially. But why I also find it an interesting story. So first, she's been sentenced to jail now. People think most likely what's going to happen is that there'll be some kind of prisoner exchange. So the US, which has, different sorts of Russians in jail there, arms dealers and spies and all that, Russians are in jail in America. One of them is going to be used as a prisoner exchange to get Britney, who's a, women's basketball player, back to the States. Why I also find it interesting when I first read about it in February, right, when she first got arrested, was that it never occurred to me that the WNBA, I think it's called WNBA, right?
Yeah, WNBA.
The women there earn so much lower than their male counterparts that they have to spend their off season going to Russia to play basketball.
Oh,
right. That's where they make their money.
I see.
And it's just such a bizarre thing if you think about it. I mean, you're living in the world's most capitalist country, but actually you're then having to spend your off season playing basketball in Russia, and then unfortunately getting caught up in this whole shit lah. So I mean, there are just so many bizarre angles to this story when I think about it.
And this story broke where?
I read it. Where did I read it? I mean, it's all over the news, but I read this morning in New York Times, I think.
Oh, so it's one of those that's covered everywhere.
Yeah. It's covered in a lot.
And there's a very big Free Britney Greer movement.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Okay.
I think I like the basketball and fraternity and all that. They are all speaking up for her.
Yeah. So it's been dragging on since the war. What month is it now anyway? August now. It's been dragging on since, I think she was arrested in February when the war broke out. So it's been dragging on since then. And she just got 9 years in a penal colony, lah. It's not even 9 years in jail. When I saw photographs that they tried to show what a penal colony looks like. Yeah.
What's the difference between a penal colony and a normal jail?
I don't actually. I think it's like gets back to this like old Stalinist days of like you're somewhere far out in the east of Russia or
like
something.
Stranger Things, like Stranger Things.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought of Stranger Things immediately when I read the article this morning. I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna be like she's gonna be stuck in one of these Stranger Things kind of complexes.
Context: we're talking about season 4 of Stranger Things, where the character that David Harbour plays is stuck in a penal colony.
That's
Russia.
exactly what. So Britney is gonna go there. I hope they do this prisoner exchange quickly. I mean,
oh shit.
Wow.
So I mean, it's ongoing, lah. Are people optimistic?
She just got sentenced today.
Are people optimistic about her release?
I think people are optimistic about the exchange.
Swap,
the swap.
I see.
Yeah, because Biden and all are involved already, lah. It's a big thing.
So this interests you as a journalist or just as a general? You're just interested in all this.
It interests me
human nature
for so many reasons, lah. So just so many reasons, It's also like, I mean, it's just so many reasons. Even like, if it's true what she got caught with, which is one hashish vape, I mean, that's like nothing, right? I mean, it's like you to kena 9 years in prison for one hashish vape is ridiculous, lah. I mean, there's just so many angles to it, which make me think that is then the whole dynamic of war. And if you think about how war is something so tragic and so grand, but then how it affects individual lives who are actually so distanced from the actual war, you know? Because and that's a function of geopolitics. It's a function of how our world is set up. Russia would never have nabbed her if they didn't think that she'd become a bargaining chip. That's why they nabbed her, right?
Yeah.
Fuck, man.
So, I mean, I've seen the headlines, but I never really read it because I always thought, it's some Michael Fay-ish kind of thing where the American is in prison overseas and then the media is going nuts about it. But actually, she did something wrong. But now hearing about this, then I'm going to go back and read about it, lah.
Oh yeah, I mean, so when I read about it in February and March, the stories are crazy, lah. Not just Britney's, but other women who also play in Russia, and then they share stories about because a lot of these teams are owned by these Russian tycoons and oligarchs. So that the boss picked us up one day and like his bodyguards and the bodyguards had just shot somebody. They had just come from a gang fight. There are all these like, and then I'm thinking like back to that original thing, lah. The women are so underpaid in America that they're forced to go and live in this kind of situation.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
It's many angles, many
So
angles.
the article that you read is on the New York Post, and that's
in the New York Times,
New York
on
Times, New York
Brittany
Times.
Grier. I think
Okay, okay.
Grier.
We can add a link, lah.
Yeah.
Wow, cool,
But
man.
you can Google tons of articles about her.
That's like a Jom level kind of story. Yeah. Like so many angles to it.
It was a very diverse one Shiok Thing trilogy of one Shiok things.
Yeah.
And that's what you get with Jom, right?
Yeah, with Jom. Exactly, yeah. That's what you get with Jom. But yeah, so once again, if you want to find out more, jom.media.
Yep.
And that's where the newsletters are. That's where any information they can find is.
Yep.
Sweet, man. Awesome. Anything else you want to tell our listeners? Or
not? No, it's just that I realized that Harish and Terence have become like super mainstream. So I'm not. This might be the last show that I'm on, because I saw that you guys appear at Star Awards. You went to Star Awards. You got Straits Times spread and all that. I was looking through. I'm like, you guys are becoming too fucking mainstream for me.
Jealous, Sudhir. You jealous, lah. Jealous, say you jealous, lah.
You guys used to be cool and
Next year we'll be NDP host.
Next,
the NDP host for
what next? I was going to say, what next? NDP.
Next year. Yeah. No, we need to be arrested
it's
at
not,
least once.
It's not really good for my brand to be associated with such mainstream people.
I
hope you understand that.
But like you say, you must. It's very interesting. You got to look into the details. Sudhir. Where were we sitting in the auditorium during the Star Awards? Were we in the middle or were we off to the side? Matters. All these details matter.
Yeah, it's been nice knowing you. You and your C-level life. But yeah, cool, man. Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks for coming. I think that was a full 2 hours, no?
It's my boss just.
Thanks for having me, man. It's always fun.
You passed the 2-hour mark, which means you are somewhat interesting.
Somewhat interesting.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, correct. But yeah, awesome. Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for listening.